So I've had this problem with Soul for a long time. The movie always rubbed me in the wrong way, and ever since I first watched it, I just couldn't shake the feeling that the writers just chose the worst possible ending with the setup in the world they created. I remember vividly trying to tell a friend right after finishing the movie that it felt like a choose-your-own-adventure story where the player chose selfish decisions, no matter if they were in the wrong with choosing them. So many different aspects of the story I feel could have been way better if they had just let the story play out the way it was going towards, instead of just shoehorning a happy ending for the main character at the detriment of everyone else. From Joe's non-existent character arc to him just simply ignoring all those around him with the lessons they try to instill in him, today I want to take a deep dive into Disney's Soul and answer the question of how I would make it better. But before I can tell you about that, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. Me, I'm the sponsor. You really think I can get sponsors with this amount of subs? Come on, really? So if you want to see me get more money from your views, you better subscribe, like, and comment down below. If you really like my channel, hit that bell notification button. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Let's cut right to the chase what my main problem with the story is. In essence, Joe Gardner is too much of a selfish person. From the very beginning of the story, it's clear to see he isn't content with his life, not putting his full effort into teaching. We can see he finds this below him and acts as if it's only a stepping stone to his inevitable life as a musician.
Joe Gardner, where have you been?
I've been teaching middle school band, but on the weekends.
Throughout the story, we see Joe denying to himself what his true purpose in life is: teaching. I'll expand on why I think this later, but that's only the start of the character flaws Joe has. It's the arrogance in thinking that he's deserving of a shot, that one big break he always dreamed of and wants so badly. Many times throughout the story, he describes the gig with Dorothea Williams as the start of his new life, as if to say this one night will change the course of his life for the better. What Joe doesn't realize is that no matter what monumental moment he has, he will still feel the same emptiness on the inside, because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey there and the people we meet along the way. Joe, being as selfish and short-sighted as he is, has successfully alienated any friends or relationships he could have had up to the point where we see him in the beginning of the story. From Dez's Barbara to the elusive Lisa we only hear of, but never see twice in the movie. The only one who truly puts in an effort to help Joe get on the right track anymore is his mother, who he thinks hates him and doesn't believe in his dream, but is actually the most supportive of him. There are a lot of points in the movie that showcase how much of an asshole Joe really is. From trying to brush off Connie to interrupting Moonwind in the middle of his ritual, Joe shows how self-centered he is when it comes to getting his own way. I think, however, the person who gets it the worst, though, is 22. From the very beginning, 22 just wanted to get rid of Joe, but because of his own selfish actions, she was thrusted into the situation he made for himself. Even through the ordeal, however, 22 sees the best of everything and slowly grows to love Earth, even if she denies it outwardly, the pizza scene being a great example of it. Joe really tries everything in his power to stop 22 from becoming a better person and move his own plot forward without having to experience anything from someone else's view. I think the greatest example of this is the moment on the subway as 22 finally appreciates music from the singer and Joe looks back. We can see that same look Joe had when experiencing jazz for the first time on 22's face as she listens to music, but instead of taking this moment to realize 22 is changing, he rushes her to hurry up and doesn't care about how she feels. It's really interesting, but all throughout the movie, Joe never himself has that same look of joy and wonder that 22 has when in his body. We only see that look when it's 22 or when Joe was a kid in a flashback of him learning jazz. All other times we see him half smile that hides that deep sadness. Mostly because Joe realizes deep down he will still be empty at the end of the day. Dorothea Williams actually summed up that feeling very nicely after the show.
I thought I'd feel different.
I heard this story about a fish. He swims up to this older fish and says, "I'm trying to find this thing they call the ocean." "The ocean?" says the older fish. "That's what you're in right now." "This?" says the young fish. "This is water. What I want is the ocean."
It scenes like this make me wonder, why did they not choose to continue down this route instead of giving Joe that happy ending that he didn't deserve? Joe, from the very beginning of the movie, has been scared to talk to his mother. We can hear when he calls his friend at the beginning of the movie that he doesn't want her to know about his gig, and from 22 that he thinks that she thinks he's a failure. From the first time we meet Joe's mother, we can tell she just wants the best from him though. She wants him to have a work-life balance and for him to have a steady job with benefits, one he's been offered from the school but is reluctant to take. Joe's relationship with his mother really encapsulates his view of himself that everyone is against him. When you think your own mother is against you for following your dreams because she wants you to have a steady job to complement your gigs, you have to look at yourself and reflect on your decisions. Joe genuinely has main character syndrome, which sounds ironic, seeing as he is the main character of the story. But what I mean by this is that he truly thinks good things should happen to him just because he is himself, feeling as if the world owes him anything at all. Getting back to his mother, however, in the part of the movie where 22 rips Joe's pants and the two have to go to his mother's shop, we can see the two finally have a heart-to-heart talk about what he wants in his life. Joe genuinely does not care about his future as long as he can be known for his music, sacrificing his teaching career and relying on his mother for aid when he can't pay his bills. I really do feel sympathy for Joe's mother because she truly understands how Joe feels, but he doesn't see it like that. Joe's mother, Liba, went through the same thing with his father, but the differential with the two being that Joe's father had support, that being his wife. I find it so weird that Joe simply refuses to try to find a balance and has to go all in or nothing. As if doing gigs on the weekend or nights after teaching would be that hard to do. You really feel bad for Liba because even through all the talking and trying to make Joe see through his arrogance, she still will be his #1 fan and supporter. Unlike Paul from the barbershop, I like that transition. I'm trying to get better with my writing flow. So let me know what I can change and improve in the comments below. The barbershop was such an interesting scene. Before we even get introduced to Dez, Joe affirms to 22 that if he wants to talk about something, just talk about jazz, since that's the only thing they ever talk about, showing his narrow-mindedness towards other people's lives and their aspirations they might have. Joe sits back and listens to Dez as he and 22 discuss his life, and I really feel as though Dez was written to be an anti-Joe, just listening to his story how he wanted to be a vet, but had to settle for being a barber since it was cheaper to go into, and the mindset he has about his current life. He isn't caught up in the what ifs, he is living his best life with what he has. He may not be the vet he always dreamed of being, but he still makes people happy with his line of work, which is enough for him. The fact Joe never once asked him about his life prior to this is a testament to how bad of a friend he really is. How many times has he gone into that barbershop, gotten the same haircut, and talked about jazz? Dez is truly too good of a man, and the fact that he put up with Joe for so long shows how good of a person he really is. Who can blame Paul for being negative towards him when he only talks about his big break and how great his life will be after getting a gig, but never getting it time after time? It starts to become meaningless. You know, Joe really reminds me of another Pixar protagonist, Carl from Up. If you boil the two characters down, they both are the same. Both are dead set on getting a goal and are tunnel vision to the destination they have in mind. With Joe, it's playing a gig with Dorothea Williams. With Carl, it's getting his house to Paradise Falls. Both meet their wacky sidekicks that get them to see life in a new perspective, but here's the part where Soul falls flat. By the time Carl realizes being at Paradise Falls isn't all that he wanted it to be, it's only the mid part of the movie. So the remainder of the runtime is devoted to him growing as a person. We see him realizing his mistakes and becoming a better person. With Soul, we get this half-assed ending where Joe learns no lesson and has no repercussions for his actions. He hasn't taken any steps to bettering himself, and all we do get to see is him smiling at the end of the movie. What does that show? There's no character growth, there's no development. All throughout the story, we see him being anything but open-minded. What happened to his teaching job? Does he take it? Does he not? What about Dorothea? Does he continue playing with her in the quartet? Does he even become a better friend to Dez and learn more about him? Does he ever talk to Lisa again? Does Joe know his purpose isn't music? There are so many questions left unanswered in all the worst ways. It's disappointing to see since the movie seemed to be going in a direction where it would touch on all these topics. Why leave bits and pieces if not to expand on them later? It's unfortunate. Before, I said I'll explain why I feel teaching is Joe's true purpose in life, and I'll go more into depth about that now. The very beginning of the movie starts with Joe in a classroom, teaching his class. He's always enjoyed jazz, so why not allow that joy to be carried over into teaching the kids about it? We see later on that the only reason why Curly's a musician is because of Joe, and by extension, that means the only reason he met Dorothea Williams is because he was a teacher, the very thing he hates about himself. Time and time again, the movie draws attention to the fact that Joe is truly a teacher. In the Hall of Remembrance, when it shows off all his greatest moments, Joe looks over all the times he was teaching to focus on the rejections he faced from gigs. When 22 is in his body and Connie comes to give her instrument back, we see how he affected her in a positive way. She looked up to him, and that's why she wanted words of encouragement to keep playing. But when she didn't get them, she showed off what she was working on to get praise for it. The way Joe simply doesn't care about her and focuses only on him getting to the gig in time just makes me sad for not only Connie, but any other student that Joe might have brushed off in the past to focus on a gig that didn't end up panning out. Not only is Joe a good teacher to his students when he tries, but he's also a good teacher to 22. All throughout the movie, from learning to walk to eating, just living life, Joe, if you realize it or not, has been teaching 22 how to live. The fact he chalks it up to being because they're in his body is just downplaying the relationship they formed throughout the time they had with each other. It's just a shame, honestly. I feel like I can go on and on about all the things this movie did wrong, but let me just do what the title said I would do and fix the movie. So, to fix the movie, I start from the point 22 and Joe go back down to Earth. From there, the interactions will be more or less the same, except for that Joe, seeing the joy of 22 learning to be human, starts to question why he never experienced life the way they do. It would compound with the scene from the barbershop where he realizes that he was always a bad friend to Dez and never learned about his life, only caring about talking about jazz. We get the Connie scene where he realizes more that he truly was able to touch people when he was teaching, seeing how he inspired her to play and to continue to. Eventually, Terry catches up with the two and they're sent back. This is where Joe is overcome with emotion because he wasn't able to get to his gig and becomes a lost soul. Thinking his purpose is piano, he frankly calls out over and over again, "Gotta get my big break, gotta get my big break, gotta play my gig." 22 having to calm him down and tell him that his true purpose was really teaching, having had seen through his eyes and knows his memories. 22 telling him about all the people that he had touched through teaching. Joe calms down and we learn that the Jerrys were actually behind this all along, explaining why Joe was able to break out of the line to the great beyond. As we learned, they wanted Joe to finally realize his purpose wasn't music, but to teach. And that although his spark was piano, that teaching was his purpose all along. 22 has her Earth pass, and one of two things can happen at this point. Either Joe goes back to Earth to start to become a better teacher and we see him grow as a person, or he understands that he had his shot at life and blew it and asks the Jerrys if he can become a mentor of them and have a new program for new souls where they go to Earth and try out living it for a day to really see how it is. As long as the movie has an actual arc for Joe, it will turn out way better than how it ended up today. So either of these choices are my pick for how to fix the movie. That's about as much as I have to say about Soul and how Joe is just a bad protagonist. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment down below of what you think about the movie, and tell me if you agree with what I said. I've been Sunny, and as always, see you next time.